A violinist is suing Will Smith, claiming retaliation after he alleges that he was fired for reporting sexual harassment while on tour with Smith. Brian King Joseph filed the lawsuit in California earlier this week, accusing Smith of deliberately grooming him for sexual exploitation.
A musician on Will Smith's tour walked into his hotel room and found something that didn't belong there. Not just one thing, multiple items. A backpack, a note, medication with someone else's name on it. And according to the lawsuit, it looked like someone had been inside his room while he was gone, without permission. But that wasn't the part that shocked him the most, because after reporting the incident to security, police, and Will Smith's team, he says he wasn't protected. He was fired. Now that same violinist is accusing Will Smith of retaliation, claiming he lost his job after speaking up about what happened. And the details inside this lawsuit are what turn this story into something much bigger than a simple dispute. Because the deeper you look into what he claims he found in that room, the more unsettling the situation becomes. The person behind the lawsuit is Brian King Joseph, a musician who had been touring with Will Smith during his recent run of shows.
Shocking allegations against Will Smith, a violinist who was a finalist on America's Got Talent and performed in Smith's band, is accusing the star of predatory behavior.
At first, everything seemed normal. According to the filing, Joseph joined the tour in late 2024, performing alongside Smith as part of the rollout for his latest album. They spent time together, traveled together, and built what Joseph describes as a growing connection. In fact, the lawsuit claims Smith told him something unusual, that they had a special connection, something he didn't share with anyone else. Now think about that, because just weeks later, everything would take a sharp turn. In March, while the tour stopped in Las Vegas, Joseph says he returned to his hotel room late at night and immediately felt like something wasn't right. The room looked different, not just slightly off, different enough to make him stop. Because what he claims he found inside that room didn't just raise questions.
Will Smith faces serious allegations in an explosive lawsuit just filed. This violinist is accusing Smith of predatory behavior and sexual exploitation after he was hired to go on tour with the Oscar winner.
It raised alarms. When Brian King Joseph walked into that hotel room at the Mandalay Bay, the first thing he noticed was that items had been moved. But it didn't stop there. According to the lawsuit, there were objects inside the room that didn't belong to him at all. A beer bottle, cleaning wipes, an earring, a red backpack. And then it got even stranger. Joseph claims he found HIV medication labeled with someone else's name, along with hospital paperwork for a person he didn't recognize. Documents that had no connection to him, sitting inside his room. Let that sink in. Because this wasn't just a case of a messy space. It looked like someone had been there. And according to the complaint, there were no signs of forced entry, which means whoever entered that room likely had access. But the most unsettling part wasn't even the items themselves.
Before filing the lawsuit, he posted this cryptic message.
Unfortunately, some things happened, and I can't get into the details of exactly what that was.
Brian Joseph King made a name for himself when he competed on America's Got Talent.
It was the note he says he found. According to the lawsuit, the note left inside the room read something very specific. Brian, I'll be back no later 5:30, just us. Think about that. Whoever wrote it clearly believed they would be returning. Not knocking, not asking permission, returning. And that's what made the situation feel even more serious. Because this wasn't just about someone entering the room. It suggested intent. It suggested that whoever had been there expected to come back and interact with Joseph directly. According to the complaint, that realization triggered immediate concern. Joseph says he feared that an unknown individual might return to the room and attempt to engage in sexual activity with him. Not a misunderstanding, not confusion, a situation he describes as genuinely alarming. At that point, he didn't stay quiet. He reported everything. According to the lawsuit, Brian King Joseph immediately reported what he found.
Dazzled the audience and judges with his incredible talent. Judge Heidi Klum was so impressed, she ran on stage and gave him a hug. Earlier this year, Joseph was hired to go on tour with Will Smith.
He contacted hotel security. He notified police, and he informed representatives connected to Will Smith. In other words, he did exactly what you would expect someone to do in that situation. Raise the alarm, document what happened, make sure it was taken seriously. And at first it seemed like it would be. Hotel staff reportedly checked the room. But according to the complaint, there were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no visible damage. Which raised another question. If no one forced their way in, how did they get access? According to the lawsuit, only people connected to Smith's team had access to the room during that time. And that detail would soon become one of the most important parts of the case. Because what happened next is where everything took a turn. Just days after reporting the incident, Brian King Joseph says the situation flipped completely. Instead of being supported, he claims he was blamed. According to the lawsuit, a representative connected to Will Smith accused him of lying about what happened in the hotel room. Let that sink in. The person who reported the incident suddenly became the one being questioned.
Today, the violinist claims Smith told him, "You and I have such a special connection that I don't have with anyone else." He says after he made allegations of sexual harassment to Will Smith's management team, he was fired.
And it didn't stop there. Joseph claims that shortly after being accused of making the story up, he was fired from the tour. No investigation that he could see, no resolution, just termination. And that moment is what turns this situation from a disturbing incident into a legal battle. Because now the claim isn't just about what happened in the room. It's about what happened after he spoke up. That's why the lawsuit doesn't just focus on the hotel incident. It focuses on retaliation. According to Brian King Joseph, he believes he was removed from the tour because he reported what happened, not because of performance issues, not because of contract problems, but because he spoke up. And that's a serious claim. Because if proven, it would suggest that reporting a concerning situation led directly to losing his job. The lawsuit argues that the response from people connected to Will Smith wasn't about investigating the incident. It was about shutting it down, discredit the claim, remove the person making it, and move forward. But here's where things get more complicated. Because Will Smith's legal team is already pushing back hard against those accusations.
Getting fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that simply for reporting sexual misconduct or safety threats at work is not okay.
In response to the lawsuit, Will Smith's attorney, Alan B. Grodsky, issued a strong denial. He described the claims as false, baseless, and reckless, not misunderstood, not exaggerated, completely rejected. According to the statement, the legal team intends to use every available option to challenge the lawsuit and make sure their side of the story is heard. And that response shifts the situation again. Because now this isn't just one person making allegations. It's two sides presenting completely different versions of what happened. On one side, Brian King Joseph claims he reported a disturbing incident and was punished for it. On the other, Smith's legal team says those claims have no foundation. And when a case reaches that point, the truth doesn't come from statements. It comes from what can actually be proven. Now the case moves into the part that really matters: evidence. Because in situations like this, allegations alone aren't enough. The court will look at documentation, timelines, access records, and any communication tied to what happened in that hotel room. That includes who had access, who entered, and what.
Will Smith's attorney is firing back, calling the allegations false, baseless, and reckless. They are categorically denied, and we will use all legal means available to address these claims and to ensure that the truth is brought to light.
Whether anything supports the claim that someone was inside without permission. For Brian King Joseph, the burden will be to show that what he reported actually happened and that his termination was directly connected to that report. For Will Smith's side, the goal will be the opposite: to challenge the claims, to question the timeline, and to argue that the accusations don't hold up under scrutiny. And that's where cases like this often take unexpected turns. Because once evidence starts coming out, the story can shift in ways no one saw coming. As this case develops, it's starting to connect to something bigger than just one incident in a hotel room. It raises questions about how situations like this are handled behind the scenes, especially in high-profile environments like a major tour. Because when you're dealing with teams, management, and constant movement from city to city, access becomes a serious issue. Who can enter a room? Who has clearance? And what happens when something goes wrong? According to the lawsuit, only individuals connected to Will Smith's team had access to that space. If that detail holds up, it narrows the possibilities significantly. And that's what makes this part of the case so important. Because it's no longer just about what was found in the room. It's about how it could have happened in the first place. And the answer to that question could change how the entire situation is viewed.
Will Smith has been sued for sexual harassment by violinist Brian King Joseph. Here's what we know about it. Joseph has accused Smith of firing him for reporting a sexual assault that occurred on his tour and for, quote, grooming him for sexual exploitation.
At this point, the case is still in its early stages, and many of the key details have yet to be tested in court. What exists right now are claims, responses, and a growing amount of attention surrounding Will Smith and Brian King Joseph. But the real story hasn't been decided yet. Because lawsuits like this don't end with headlines. They unfold through evidence, testimony, and legal arguments that take time to build. And during that process, things can change. New details can emerge, claims can be strengthened or challenged. And the version of events people think they understand right now may not be the version that holds up in court, which is exactly why this situation is far from over. Right now, this case comes down to two completely different versions of the same story. On one side, Brian King Joseph claims he reported a disturbing incident inside his hotel room and was fired for speaking up. On the other, Will Smith's legal team says those claims are false and will be challenged in court. And until the legal process plays out, the truth sits somewhere in between. Because this isn't just about what happened in that room, it's about what happened after, how it was handled, and whether speaking up led to consequences. That's what the court will ultimately have to decide. But one thing is already clear: this story isn't over. What do you think about the situation? Do you believe this is a case of retaliation or something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.